When you know what you want for the future, you need the present to line up with your goals. UCF Online offers more than 100 fully online programs in healthcare, engineering, criminal justice, and more, so you can get to your future and beyond.
From the University of Central Florida's Center for Distributed Learning
and the University of Louisville's Delphi Center for Teaching and Learning,
I'm Tom Cavanaugh.
And I am Kelvin Thompson.
And you are listening to the final 15 episodes of Topcast, the teaching online podcast.
The final 15 scheduled episodes of Topcast, Dr. Cavanaugh.
That's right. Thank you for the reminder that we may pop into people's podcast feeds from time to time with pithy comments and insightful analysis.
Yeah, I mean, here's hoping, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Or we may pop in with neither, but pop in nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of been juicing this thing for a while. Like, it'll be a shame if we don't.
I know. All right, people will be like, I thought you were going to pop into my podcast feed and annoy me. But after you said you were going away, you didn't go away. But we'll see. We want to make sure that we have something to say if we're going to do that.
I've never let that stop me.
No comment.
Yeah, you were going to agree with me. I saw it in your face.
Oh, no, I would never. All right, Kelvin, as we know, this is billed as a collegial conversation among colleagues over a collaborative cup of coffee or something like that. And I just saw you taking a sip.
Uh-huh.
So what's in your thermos/cup/mug?
Yeah, cup today.
Cup. I see cup.
And I'm hoping you're taking a beverage there too.
Deconstructed coffee, as I sometimes do.
Uh-huh. My coffee today, Tom, is tea.
Okay.
This is some kind of like a gift collection of teas that someone put in our hospitality area with all manner of seasonal packaging around these little tiny boxes that were all shrink wrapped together. And I pulled out the one that had little snow people on them, and it said jasmine green tea. So it's a seasonal, turn of season, changing toward a new era kind of a choice. And I desperately reached for this to have a beverage since the first two beverages I reached for weren't going to be practical. And I'm like, well, maybe there's a connection in there somewhere.
Not practical. That's what's that say about I'm imagining what would not be a practical drink, and wondering what the break room at the University of Louisville looks like.
Yeah, well,
might be my kind of break room.
I mean, if you really want to know, like I went down to the cafe down on the first floor, and that did not look like an efficient operation. There were like 15 students standing waiting to be handed their beverage, and there were 3 more in line. And I'm like, I'm not engaging in that. And then I walked across the quad where there was a bagel place, and I'm like, I've gotten coffee there from before. They're closed. So I turned back, and I'm like, well, what do we have in the little hospitality here? Oh, look at that. Somebody brought in like this lovely, I mean, it was serendipitous. It was unexpected. It was nice. And then I'm like, oh, the little seasonal things. I'm like, oh, and it's lovely. It's an autumnal day, even though we're technically not in autumn yet. It's like very lovely outside. And oh, we're beginning to head toward that part of the year, toward the end of the calendar year. So I thought, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm picking up is this seasonal, maybe even transitional kind of a theme going on there. Am I getting warm?
Yeah. You were as hot as my tea.
All right. So Kelvin, You recently interviewed our colleague and friend of Topcast, Dr. Jennifer Mathis, and that may be a name that's familiar to our listeners. Dr. Mathis is the Chief Executive Officer of the Online Learning Consortium, known familiarly to its friends as OLC. With over 25 years of experience in education, Dr. Mathis has served as a higher ed faculty member, chief academic officer, and consultant, informing her leadership role at OLC. Dr. Mathis also writes a periodic newsletter, as we will hear about, on the LinkedIn platform, Digital Learning Leadership, Insights on AI, Digital Learning, and the Future of Learning Leadership. Is there anything you would like to say about your conversation with Jennifer before we cut to it?
I thought it was good. I thought it was thoughtful and detailed, and I enjoyed it. We filled every bit of our runtime, so we're going to follow the pattern from the Pillar panel. I mean, we're probably not going to be brief. So, I mean, this may be a longer episode, but that may be the way that we roll heading down to the 200th episode.
Yeah, well, more extra goodness for our listeners and viewers.
That's right.
All right, so through the magic of podcast time travel, here is your interview with Dr. Jennifer Mathis.
Hi, Jennifer. So good to have you with us on Topcast today.
And I am so thrilled to be here with you today.
Well, we've talked about getting you on for quite a while, at least Tom and I, and I think the three of us at some point or another. So glad you made it in before we closed the doors.
Right? I do appreciate that too. Yes.
So jumping into it, we've been on this theme somewhat recently about being informed by our full history and our recent past, having an eye toward the future, right? And thinking about sustainability and so forth. And I think you're poised really well to help us think about the field broadly from several different angles. So I'm going to jump in and just ask a really in-the-weeds question. From your vantage point, Jennifer, how long do you think phrases such as online learning or online education or online teaching and learning, how long do you think that kind of a phrase will continue to be useful as a label in higher education?
So honestly, I think that phrase is going to be something we continue to hear for quite a while, into the future. And there's many reasons for that. As much as you and I working in online learning know that or have seen it evolved, right, over the past 20, 30 years, there are still a lot of people out there who question the effectiveness of online learning or like to be the naysayers and find all the issues that may exist, in an online learning environment. And as long as that's the case, I think that we're still going to be using this terminology, be talking about it. But I think the next steps really that we continue to take, I know I've been doing this for the past 5 years since the pandemic. I know, others have been doing this as well, but it's really educating people on what effective online learning is. And the fact that, intentionally designing online learning is what is going to improve the quality, improve the student experience. Once we can get to that point and we can see that online learning really is a very good tool that can help students be successful, can help students who can't come to a college campus. We've always had that advantage with online learning that it's that anywhere access, right? Mm-hmm. So when people start to understand that and they start to see that if it's done correctly, it's actually very good, I think that's when we're going to get away from, breaking up traditional versus online learning. Then it's just going to become learning, right? And it's just going to take us some time because there are too many people out there who love to jump on the bandwagon and complain about, their online learning experience or, whatever that they had 10 or 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So
I thought I heard two related but distinct things. I want to pull a thread or two. So just want to check my understanding. So one, I think I heard you say, while there is value in shared terminology, what we might find more valuable is not so much swapping out language, like online learning, and we might find it more valuable to frame up how we talk about online learning, like you talked about intentional design and so forth, which I agree with.
Yes.
So that's one of the things you said. The other, though, you imagined briefly toward the end there a time where learning might just be learning and teaching might just be teaching. What would it take to be there? How would we know when we were there?
How do we know we were there? I mean, if we look about how education in itself has evolved over time and the different tools that have been brought in, I think we're going to know when we're there when we see that widespread acceptance. So think about the introduction of the calculator or the introduction of the internet, when teachers were scared about using those tools in the classrooms because it would affect student learning. Students wouldn't know as much, they wouldn't do as well, whatever. And now it's commonplace, right? We have the internet. We've had it for a while. We're using that in the classroom. When we're doing face-to-face, there's no difference in, when we're doing something online. Calculators have been used for many, many years. We're not back thousands of years ago when a philosopher was standing in front of their students and just talking to them, right? This education has evolved. We've come to accept how it's evolved slowly. And I think with online learning that we will hit a point at some point in the future, we will hit that time when we're going to feel comfortable that educators will feel like, oh, this is just another tool that I can use to help my students learn effectively. Mm-hmm. And when we get there, and this includes not just teachers, I should also include the leaders at institutions who feel comfortable with offering online learning, the visionaries, the innovators who feel comfortable with us offering that. When we get to that point, I think that's when we're going to say, okay, this is just learning now. This is another way we offer it. It's just, instead of a classroom, it's online.
I'm going to pull on that thread some more. I'm sorry, I'm being difficult today.
You're okay.
How much of that imagined point of acceptance that you've talked about, how much of that is, do you think, acceptance of the, I think you used the word tool a few times, tools and platforms and technologies, versus acceptance of, you earlier talked about intentional design. You didn't say this, but I might throw on the table, part of that is robust preparation and support of faculty and wraparound services and all that. How much is the tools and the technology acceptance, and how much is the all that other stuff, the intentional design and support and so forth?
I mean, honestly, I think it's all kind of part of the same package. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. I didn't mention professional development and having teachers who are not only prepared to design an online environment, but also to teach in that environment. Mm-hmm. Very important to the whole process. And all of it needs to be done in order to create that effective environment and for that acceptance to happen, right? Students are another part of that equation, that they have to accept that online learning is good for them as well, that they're able to learn in that environment. They're able to do as well as their peers, walk out, get a job. I mean, that's just as important as, having the teachers and the leaders feel comfortable in offering online learning. So when we create that environment by intentionally designing it, by having the professional development that allows our faculty to go in there and be prepared to teach and help their students learn, when we help students have the knowledge they need to be successful and navigate that online environment, all of those things have to happen in order to see us hit that point where we can say, okay, this is something that's widely accepted that we're gonna see continue to grow. And I'm going to kind of jump off a little bit here from that as well. I hope you don't mind. But I want to throw out too that we're at a point in our history and in the evolution of higher education, I think, where online learning is more important than ever. We're looking at some big changes happening in higher education that started earlier this year. Higher education has seen some funds cut from their budgets. We are seeing that there are going to be changes coming with financial aid here very soon. And as all of that happens, it's going to be harder and harder for students to be there on campus and take classes in person because that gets very expensive, especially if you pay for the residence halls and everything else. If they can't come on campus, then they still need options. And we need to make sure that those options are there. So if we're doing online learning and we're doing it in a way that is quality, it's effective, and students can actually learn and be able to get a job after that, we're doing them this is a service for them that can help them for their future. And it has to happen. I think, again, kind of going off on my tangent here, but I've seen and I've heard from many university presidents and provosts who want students back on campus. They want to fill those classrooms. I know a lot of boards of higher education boards, colleges and universities want to see those students in the seats. But honestly, we're at a point where we're going to have to make sure that we're bringing education to the students. And so I think that with all of these changes, we're going to have to do online learning in the right way. And then we're going to see that help the evolution as well, that we're going to become more accepting of online learning as a society, because that's how we're going to have to get it to many of our students. That's how we're going to have to deliver it.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
agree. No, I agree with all of that. I think that's right. I think Tom and I have talked about, the fact that our friends over on the Online Education Across the Atlantic podcast, Phil Hill and Linda Morgan and Neil Mosley, talked a couple months back in a kind of like a throwaway line or two. Their collective, and I agree with this, their collective view of the past decades as quote unquote traditional higher education might be characterized as, here we are as educational institutions, we're wonderful, you do well to come into our orbit. We're just going to sit here and just kind of radiate our greatness, as opposed to, they said, online education over the decades has been, just like you said, all about reaching out to, being centered on the potential learner. And instead of like, here we are, it's more, there you are. And we have something that we want to offer you. And it's more offering, serving, reaching out. And I tend to agree. Maybe I'll pivot just a little bit and ask, from your vantage point, leading a professional association like the Online Learning Consortium, what do you think, like OLC and other kinds of entities, professional associations, consortia, whatever assemblages there are, how do you think entities like yours might influence this continued refinement of message and so forth to get us to that acceptance state, to use your language?
And I think for organizations like the Online Learning Consortium, for us, it's all about getting that message out through interviews with media, the materials that we're writing or publishing, even the LinkedIn newsletter that I do. All of those are things that I use as a way to get that message out that online learning is an effective resource. It's an effective platform or delivery method to get learning to students if you do these key things, right? If these things are in place. If you want to do what we did 25 years ago or so, I have to do the math, right? When I first taught an online class, if we go back to those days, no, it wasn't very good, right? But we've learned so much since then. So for us, it's all about continually repeating that message. This is what good online learning looks like. And as we do that, then that's going to help people understand how they can view online, or how they should view online learning, and if they're in education, how they can improve their own online learning practices. If they're students, they'll know what to look for when they're taking online classes. And I will tell you, part of this, we have to consider that it's not just higher ed, but we have to look at this from K through 12 through lifelong learning, because the students we get in higher ed, they may have experienced virtual learning in K-12, and it may not have been great. I have a daughter who started college this fall, and much to my dismay, took 0 online classes because she did not like virtual classes that she took in high school, and that was her experience. And she even told me, "Mom, I know you know this stuff, and I know you know how to do it right, but I don't want to have to be the guinea pig again." And I think that's something that we see too often, that students are coming in with a bad experience. They don't know what to look for. So organizations like us sharing with them, hey, this is what good online learning looks like, then they know, and they can look for ways that they can help to improve it in their own experiences by going back to the higher education institution and telling them what was wrong and what they need to change.
No, that's helpful. It's interesting. I think you're right that background of students does make a difference. Just for the sake of contrast, my daughter, who's in college, takes a lot of online classes, but she also, we purposely, during like the pandemic pivot, made sure that she wasn't taking kind of the ad hoc, we're just figuring this out and plugging the holes kind of experience. We made sure she was enrolled in an actual decades of experience doing it right virtual school. So she's had a positive experience. And so she makes her choices about what she's going to take in person, what she's going to take online, and so forth. So I think your point's well taken. Regardless, the students' backgrounds vary. And so their expectations vary, and for better or for worse. Do you want to say another word? You mentioned it very much in passing there, your still fairly recent LinkedIn newsletter. I've enjoyed seeing you, and I'm impressed. You have a much more frequent rhythm than I do, coming out with new issues. You want to say a word about it?
Sure. And it was very frequent at the beginning. I know it's become a little less frequent lately because life gets in the way, right? But for me, I found this year, with all the changes we were experiencing in higher education, it really helped me. Some people, actually, probably not many people who listen to this may know this, but I had a journalism background, and many years ago, I even wrote for the Chicago Tribune. So for me, writing has always been something that I do to relax, and to kind of share my thoughts, and it's very helpful, and I'm trying to blank out the word I'm looking for, but it's kind of cathartic for me, right? That it just kind of helps me, to be able to express myself.
Therapeutic, cathartic.
Therapeutic, yes. So for me, I started doing that newsletter this year because of all that we were seeing, and I wanted to share some thoughts. But I also wanted to share what online learning meant to me, what is happening with AI, and how we as a field need to really share the message that online learning, AI, they're not bad things, but you need to know how to use them. You need to know how to use them in the right way. And so that's something that I've enjoyed doing, and I'm going to continue doing that for a while until, life again makes me too busy to be able to do much. But it's been good. And I know you've done your newsletter as well, which I have also enjoyed, because I think it brings, some much needed space to kind of think about how, as educators, we need to sometimes take a step back too. So I've enjoyed reading that, but yeah, it's been good, and I think I've gotten some very good responses from doing the writing. I'm not as popular. I know there are some people who have thousands and thousands of readers, and honestly, I don't care. I'm kind of doing this for me as well, and that's why I just look at it as it's enjoyable for me to do. And as you said, therapeutic for me to do it this way. And I can, post my thoughts and at the same time, kind of share what we're doing at the Online Learning Consortium. And that's something I enjoy doing.
It's interesting. I mean, I know we're due to hit stop and walk out the door here in a moment, but I hear really a bit of a through line in this conversation, Jennifer, that there's a need for us all to frame our messaging to be ambassadors for effective strategic online education. And you're living that out, not just in your sort of official work within the context of a professional association, but even in writing this newsletter and in interactions with colleagues. So I hear a through line, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, is that the biggest takeaway that you would promote to our listeners? Or is there another one thing that you might leave us all with to help us engage with and shape the positive future of online learning?
So I do think that a big part of it is that we should all be ambassadors. We should all be sharing the message and helping to educate others, students, parents, teachers, leaders at our institutions, politicians. What is good online learning? What does it look like, and what is important to be able to achieve that effective online learning environment, right? So I think that is a huge part of it. I also think that there are some things that I always share when I'm talking about the evolution of online learning, and we've touched on these things. One, make sure that the online learning, whether you're the one teaching in the classroom or you're the one leading it or whatever, but make sure that it's being done correctly, that there's intentional design, that those who are going to be facilitating that classroom environment are prepared, that they've had that professional development. I think that's one thing I've harped on since the pandemic more than anything else is professional development is key to successful online learning. Again, I've said this already, but we need to make sure that our teachers are prepared, that they know that is not the same. It's not the same to teach in an online environment as it is in face-to-face. You have to be prepared, and professional development is the key there. So I think those are the big things that I would kind of leave as my final thoughts. How's that?
Thanks, Jennifer. Those are great thoughts. And on behalf of Tom, who will join us in the recording wraparound, and myself, it's just been a delight having you engage with us on Topcast. Thanks, Jennifer. All
right. Thank you.
All right, Kelvin, that was your interview with Dr. Jennifer Mathis. I really enjoyed listening to that. I think that she's really smart, really connected into the community, knows what she's talking about. And, I'm a big fan of OLC, as you know.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really good. I will say, I don't think I said this. I was a little surprised that she said what she said at the beginning about, online learning or some synonym thereof will stay around for years to come. So many people, maybe us included, we've talked about pivoting, reconceptualizing, reframing, and she's like, nope, we're not there yet. And I'm like, I appreciate somebody putting a stake in the ground.
Yeah, I mean, I get her point, and I don't know if I disagree. I know I'm the guy who's sort of written about sort of post-modality someday, but I don't think we're there yet. So many years to come may be the right time horizon for that.
Yeah, right. I mean, just really interesting. And her focus on widespread acceptance was her word, acceptance.
Yeah. So, when we get to a point, I think she used like the calculator as an example. So when the calculator came out, everybody freaked out, or the internet came out, everybody sort of freaked out and like, this is going to change everything. We need to stop it. It's going to ruin it. And now it's just widely accepted, to coin her term, that you use your calculator, you use the internet. And I actually have, in my own career, seen the level of resistance against online learning wane, right? It's not what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but just to say this, serendipitously, we were meeting here, as we do, with an academic unit's leadership, and it was one that hasn't really engaged in the online side, right? I mean, we have other teaching and learning center work and other stuff that we do. And it was a really interesting, forward-looking conversation today. And toward the end of that, one of the leaders of this unit said, I mean, some of our folks are going to be kind of traditionalist and resistant. Who do you work with well? I mean, it was just such a naive, honest question, right? And so this other unit, they do a lot of stuff. I mean, what's your thought? Well, it's just kind of good to know that other people, it was like.
Do you have any references?
Yeah. Where have you been for the last few decades? I mean, but it was an honest, very well-intentioned question. And it's like, so, yeah, but there's still folks who are finding their way into this world, even within the same institution.
And I'll throw one other kind of odd curveball at you that came up recently, not in a meeting I was in, but that I heard about. That so somebody here on campus who sort of leads our faculty center, who's very concerned about AI, and I get it, like AI agents, and we know what they're capable of like actually logging into the LMS and doing some work and submitting assignments, and you don't do anything. That might be a topic that we'll pop in and talk about into the feed at some point.
Yeah, right.
But had actually made a suggestion to the provost that we should get rid of online courses at UCF because of this threat of AI. We're going to have a conversation about it because I have not talked to this person about that yet. But that's a different kind of resistance that I've not encountered before. That it's something that I think we're going to have to navigate going forward. So to bring it back to Jennifer, years and years to come before widespread acceptance. And as soon as we sort of felt like we were getting that, this big curveball comes in where some people are going to, who even weren't resistant to it or might now say, well, we can't have that because of this other thing. Like, well, I don't think that's the answer.
What a great transition, right? I think, yes. And, Jennifer makes this point of, hey, let's get past talking about all that and say this work is more important now than ever, right? And she said the access work and the quality work, more important than ever. So to the point of responding to this colleague, I mean, sure, you could discontinue all online classes it's going to mute all the access work.
Which is exactly how the provost responded, apparently.
And
it's
I would
only
say
half the credit
the
hours
quality
that
work
are
too. Yeah,
well,
only
that too.
half.
It's only half of the credit hours in revenue of the university. But okay, try that. See what happens. Yeah, there's another way to. That's a topic of another conversation. But there has to be another way to navigate this challenge besides just cutting off our nose to spite our face, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we're not done. I do think, like you said, it is worth. Maybe we ought to have that conversation at some point. It is worth to talk more about all that. Every once in a while, I have my own little thought experiments in my head. All the voices they get together, have a conference, and or I follow some thread on LinkedIn or in the comments of some article, and somebody somewhere, even including in my head, okay, it's going to be all oral examinations and blue books.
Yep.
I mean, okay.
Something else this colleague wants.
You can go that direction.
Yeah.
But I love something else Jennifer said, right? And it for me, it invoked, I remember what Ray Schroeder said in our last episode, that pillar panel number 1 with Ray and Melissa Vito. Ray talked about this from years ago at University of Illinois Springfield, the slogan and the goal of bringing education to the students. And Jennifer invoked that same kind of a mindset, right? That we're not done. We still need to do that. That's the access part, right? We still need to do that. And
but
there's a lot of our institutions that haven't learned that yet.
True. Yeah. And to your quality comment, sorry to step on you there, that you made, Jennifer alluded to that too when she talked about her daughter going away to college, and we know that what happened during COVID, especially in the high schools, wasn't always the pinnacle of online learning, and some students just don't want that again. And so, how do we get them back, or how do we convince them that what we're doing isn't that? Right, it's a completely different. We've talked at length about kind of intentional design and quality and all of that, but that's another sort of headwind that we're facing, I think, as we move, to use your word earlier, into this transition into this new space, whatever this next chapter is for online learning.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I handled it graciously with these colleagues today. I hope, but I did charge right forward, because you could see we talked a little bit. We're doing some we're early stages of basically online design and teaching credentialing kind of work here that our former provost asked for as a quality assurance measure. And as we were talking about engaging with these folks who hadn't engaged disciplinarily around online, a colleague mentioned that, and you could sort of see the saucer eyes, and I was just waiting for the but, and how hard could this be? We did some of this remote instruction stuff 5 years ago. So I could see it before anybody took a breath. I'm like, that's just doing something during COVID, not the same as actually doing online course design and teaching well, just like being a backyard hobbyist doesn't make you a professional, right? It's just different kind of stuff. So quality.
Yeah. Well, any kind of final thoughts before I ask you to bring the plane in for a landing here?
Maybe some shout out to some prior episodes. I don't remember the number right this second, but we talked about I don't ever want to do online again from a high school guidance counselor colleague. Tom Tobin talked about good teaching being good teaching. Jennifer spoke aspirationally about getting there. Tom's episode is 182. We've talked before about the kind of messaging that Jennifer has called for us to be ambassadors. Episode 87 of Topcast, Repairing Our Reputation Post-COVID. Episode 89 of Topcast, 7 Slogans to Save Online Learning. They're not going to get stale. They're going to stay relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, quality is quality. All right. So do you want to put a bow on our plane and land it?
Yeah, I would give it a shot, sure. So maybe by way of wrap up, we'll say our broad online education community is made up of more than just the colleagues at our own institutions. For instance, there are even other entities in that community, such as professional associations, vendors, policymakers, and various others. And they all have a role in shaping the future. And the work of professional associations specifically helps generate momentum toward the future we want to live in. How's that?
Amen. I agree. All right. Thank you to you and to Dr. Jennifer Mathis from OLC for the interview. Until next time, for Topcast, I'm Tom.
I'm Kelvin.
See ya.